Hello there. Lovely to have your company for the next couple of hours. My name's Tony Squires. I'm, of course, joined by Wade Graham and Brent Reed, and sitting in for Nathan Highmarch, the one, the only, the great man, Steve Roach. Welcome, Block.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well. More importantly, how are you?
Great to see you. Long-time listener, the first time I've been on.
Yes.
How good is it, eh?
How good.
I can't wait to give it away a little bit later on, but he's a great mate of mine. I've had him in Origin, great competitor. But, mate, he's got a keg of water sitting next to him.
Yeah.
Like, mate, I can't drink that much water now because of my age and prostate, getting up at 5 times a night. If I drank like that, how many litres of water do you drink a day?
No, well, just this bottle here is 2 litres. Lock it up. Particularly try and focus on knocking over the 2 litres before the other activities start in the night time.
Oh, so the Kimpton Dooners.
Yeah. So I need to sort of like get your job done first, mate, and then you can enjoy the evening. Actually, my wife's in the city tonight with a couple of girlfriends, and I've got the boys. I'm going to take them to the footy, the Sharkies and the Warriors game, and then I'll head home for a bit of a boys' night
You'll all
with
meet
the
up
kids.
at some point?
Who?
The group of women and the group of
No,
men?
she's staying in the
He's
city.
got the
yeah.
kids.
I've got
What's
the kids.
on, what's on the menu with the kids?
Probably takeaway block, to be honest, tonight.
Yeah.
What are they? What's their boys?
They love the pizza. So just order them some pizza,
course,
nice and easy, and
Easy.
we'll see how they go because they really they'll be wound up and excited after the game tonight, or they'll be disappointed and upset after the game tonight. So I'll gauge their mood and we'll work it out from there. But talking about moods, how are you going, Tone?
Not so good. Well, Raymond for Tyler Mariner left the field with shortness of breath in the second half. I left the couch with shortness of breath about 40 minutes earlier than that.
And didn't get any better.
Didn't get any better. Well, it got worse. It got much worse. The Dragons, we'll get to that in a minute. Reedy, Argentina shorts on. What's going on?
They're my south of France shorts, Tone. Look, Tone, I think winter's a state of mind. I've always said that. I think if you wear shorts, you can fool your body into thinking it's actually warm in summer. I live on the northern beaches.
What about your pins? I wouldn't be wearing shorts if I had pins like that. Give us a look at them.
Lockie, it's radio. It's radio, Block.
The last muscle he saw was at a seafood restaurant.
What about you, Block? You're bagging Wado for his big bottle of water. What about your man bag you got back there? What's in that? What have you brought along?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The bag you got back there. You brought a bag with you.
You've got to have your apple and pear somehow, haven't you?
Absolutely. How are you enjoying, Blocky? I haven't spoken to you about it. How are you enjoying this topsy-turvy old season so far?
Wow. It's exactly that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't really pin your hopes on any side. Just as the Bulldogs were leading the way, they got flogged by the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago and a big score in the wet. Very hard. If you're a punter, good luck. Yeah, no, it's been good, but I really enjoyed the Origin. I hope we get to talk about the kickoff. I hope we get to talk about that.
We've moved on.
Don't
start Wado again.
Mate, all these Queenslanders
I'm still
now.
reeling.
Just adding it to the rundown now.
Do you know all these Queenslanders now, like hard men? You know, like when Webby was playing, and Gordon Tallis and all that. Yeah. Mate, they would have loved nothing better than a challenge to kick off to a bloke like that. And they're all now saying, "Oh no, we think Billy's done the right thing." I call bullcrap. I reckon they all would want to decapitate.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And
Yes.
Gordy Taylor's being one of them. Now, he did mention how, I guess has he spoken to you directly after? Because Wado was very vocal last week, Block, about it. It was terrific.
Very vocal.
What did Gordy?
No, I haven't spoken to Gordy about it, but I understand why he would come out and try and defend Queensland and why they did it. And I heard Billy's comment too during the week around, no, it's just a coincidence when Spencer came on. They realised that, by Vow kicking off left, they're leaving themselves short on the long side. Well, if that's the case, they missed that detail in the preparation.
Well, they were stacking one side.
Yeah, but Vow's a left winger. You kick your left, you're going to be short on the keep go, right? You know that heading into the game. Now, well, if he didn't know it, he's underprepared, he's missed that detail. But that doesn't ring true to me because I know what he's like in his preparation. I've seen the amount of work he does as a player, and I'd imagine it would be double that as a coach. So, listen, I think it's done with, but I don't think it was just a coincidence that it happened.
It would have been a good way for him to get back into the game. Origin's about moments, big moments.
Yeah.
He put himself on a platter. Why didn't they challenge him?
Yeah.
Can we get back to talking about the Dragons, Tone?
No, definitely not. We can't. So, in terms of those collisions, Block, I'm always interested in people who have played that level as you did for so long and in such a tough, combative way. How is your body?
Have a look at it. No, I'm not. Mate, I'm pretty good. Pretty good. Got a crook knee and a bit of a bad hip, but who cares? I'd have done it all again. anything to do, have a game of Origin. Again, I was talking to Wado before. I said, how are you handling retiring now? He said, I miss the big games. They're the ones that you get revved up about. That's when the hairs on the back of your arms and all that start to go up, and you want to, it's all about competing against the best. And, but mate, I'm all right. No good complaining. You know why? Because no one listens. So you can't complain. Just go about my life and away I go.
What about you? Because you're just a couple of years out of the game. Your body okay?
Yeah, all things considered, I'm pretty good, and I feel lucky. Obviously, the surgeries have probably improved a lot since Block played, so they looked after us maybe a little bit better. But yeah, all things considered, I'm in pretty decent shape. A couple of things pop up here and there, but as Block said, I'm the same as him. I wouldn't trade it for anything. If I had the opportunity to go back and do it all again and do it the same way and know the injuries that would be in front of me, I'd take that on because I love the game. I love getting out there, playing footy with my teammates, and a part of making that decision to be a rugby league player is the acceptance that you need to put your body on the line, and at times you're going to pay the price for that. But again, I wouldn't want it any other way.
But how times have changed now. I go in a dressing room now, and there's alfalfa sprouts and fruit and pineapples and all that sort of stuff. I'd had 6 stubbies before I got in the shower. Hey, and it's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Mate, we were playing one day at the cricket ground against Queensland in 1995, 84, 85, a long time ago. And Ron Willey was the coach of New South Wales, and Wayne Pearce was the captain. Queensland beat us in the first game, and if you get the vision of this game, you'll see what I'm talking about. Wayne Pearce comes in, and Ronnie Willey said, who won the toss? He said, we did. Ronnie didn't even know. He goes, are we kicking off? Yes, you kick off when you win the toss. So we're kicking off. He said, good fight. And if you have a look at the vision, straight away from the kickoff, she's on. But I watched a face-to-face the other day. I love that show. I love what it brings. And Chris Close was on it. Now,
Choppy.
Mate, what about Choppy Close, Mal Meninga, Gene Miles, Wally Lewis? Mate, those guys were up for it. They were bigger than their forward pack back in the day. Those guys were up for it week in and week out. So, the game's changed for the better, I might add.
Which way block do you think they would have kicked off?
Mate, those guys. All I know, if you remember, they showed a bit of vision. Eric Grove made a cover tackle on one of the Queenslanders, and Choppy Close come into dummy half. And Eric wouldn't let go. He lifted him up by the hair and give him the best backhand. And Eric Graves is the world's nicest bloke. As Choppy said after, he said, mate, I was trying to get the ball so I could score. Play the ball, get off, or get whacked.
On.
Yeah, play on. 6 again. It was good.
I was at that game as a kid. I remember I was actually at that game. It was at the old Lang Park. It was around 83 or something, I think, from memory. And I remember going to that game. It was the first Origin game I think I ever went to.
That's right. I was at the first one. I played under 18s for New South Wales against Queensland in the 18s, and Arthur Beetson, the very first game in 1980.
Yeah.
Arthur bashed everyone but the ball boys. Mate, I'll tell you, he did.
Reading today that Les Boyd regrets that he pulled up, said he was injured, said he had a thigh, I think, a corky, so he wouldn't play because it was just an exhibition game.
Yeah, I read that.
Regrets that it wasn't what is a game that made history.
I read that today. Yeah, he'd be dirty on himself that he didn't play in that first one. But that, talking to all those Queenslanders, and mate, I'll get on a lot good with all those guys. I toured with all those guys, Wally and Gino and all those blokes. They said the catalyst for the Origin to make it live was Arthur Beetson. When he was in the dressing room in 1980, he said to them, they're only 20-year-old kids, 21 or whatever. He said to them, look, if you don't want to be here and you don't want to get stuck in, there's the door, get out. Mate, and they certainly got stuck in.
Who was the best at coming off the back fence in your day?
Well, mate, it all changed when Bobby Fulton was the coach of Australia. And Australia played France in Parks. This is where it all started. And the front row used to line up 10 metres from the kickoff, right? And then it all changed. He put Big Ciro back against the French, and Big Ciro came from the back fence. The wheels burning, away he went. He scattered and decapitated about 15 of them.
He's a big man.
Big man, monster man. But that was the very first time that we saw that, evolution of the game where they put he wasn't playing the front row, he was playing the back row, but he was 6'5", Big Ciro. And away he went. He skilled France that day, and then that started. But I watched the other day in amazement. I saw a clip of young Brown from Manly throwing up the ball with visualisation with the ball on the back fence at Manly, throwing the ball up and like spinning his wheels. I thought that bloke's a lunatic. he actually he's actually visualising himself, and he gets smashed. And up he gets and brushes himself down. Away he goes again. Right. Love it.
Really rude of me. I didn't even ask how your body was after all
My
your
body's
years of
okay.
playing.
It's only got a few knee injuries, bit of a neck problem at the moment, but aside from that, I'm okay, mate.
What about the real players? What are we looking there in terms of any injuries, significant charge sheet? What's happening?
Yeah, look out at last night. Christian Tuipulotu, I've aggravated that hamstring problem, so that's an issue for him because he's had hammy problems this year that have sidelined him a bit. So he's got to have scans, I believe. And Ray Fatula-Mariner obviously left the field with I think it was some breathing issues or
Shortness of
Has
breath.
he had that before, earlier in the season?
Well, they're talking about asthma, but I don't know
Yeah.
what the situation is.
So again, they're actually doing video review as we speak, Tone. So that'll
Oh,
be
that'd
fun
be
for
great.
them.
I wish
Yeah,
I
they
would.
weren't feeling ill before it; they'll be feeling ill after it. But no updates on him yet. But I think he's okay. And in terms of the judiciary, a couple of incidents out of the Cowboy. Well, firstly, Herbie Farmer got charged with a careless high tackle, just a fine for Herbie. But a couple of incidents out of that Cowboys game. Viliami Vaea was a chicken wing. He's facing a one-match ban, and Johnny Bateman is facing a one-match ban as well for dangerous contact. So a bit out of that
Valea
game last night.
was on Nelson,
on Nelson,
Solomona,
yeah.
because he'd been run over by Nelson just a few tackles earlier. So I think he really, desperate
He was in
to
the
get
mood
back.
last night, Big Nelson, wasn't he? When he's in the mood, he runs over a lot of people.
Was in a mood. He was terrific. All right, well, a couple of games, couple of great comebacks. Obviously, Newcastle coming back from 16-0 down against Manly, and the Dolphins coming back from 2-0 down against the Dragons to just get there, 56-6. Let's begin there. Okay, gentlemen, I'm officially shutting up from here. I'll leave it to you three to just do your worst. What the hell happened, Wado?
Okay, well, you need to give credit to the Dolphins. That's probably the sharpest and best they've looked as a team ever. That's probably their best performance as a team, and they were brilliant across the park. Everyone stood up. You've got to give a special mention to the young halfback, Zach
good
Katoa.
is
He's really coming of age this year and just making massive strides. And listen, they hurt the Dragons early, playing expansive, coast to coast, or sideline to sideline. Then they found ways with some second phase footy through the middle of St George, and then off kicks at the end. It was everywhere.
Yeah,
it was a free for all in the end, and the Dolphins have to have credit, but for the Dragons, it's a tough one because every player in the NRL knows, or they should know, you build your whole game and your season and the success you want through your defence. And when you put in a performance like that where you miss the mark, you concede so many points, it hurts. And there's a little bit of soul searching that goes into it. A lot of the time, you don't really sense it coming. You feel like you prepared the same way that you did the week before, which they got a win in against Newcastle. You tick all the right boxes, and then you get out there and it just doesn't happen. And it's hard to remedy on the night sometimes when a team's playing as well as they are against you, like the Dolphins were last night, and you're just missing the mark. It can have a bit of a snowball offense. You can feel snowball effect. You feel like you're out there sometimes on your own, and it can rock your confidence. But what they need to do is, they're doing their review. They need to sort of close the ranks a little bit, take the criticism and take the lessons on board. Don't speak out of the side of your mouth, whinge about anything or look at anyone else. You've got to look at yourself and what you can do to improve, and you get back on the horse because they're still 10th. It's only round 14, and they have defended in good periods throughout the year and had some success. But last night would be a tough one for them to go through today. And
yeah, well, we spoke, didn't we, last week with Shane Flanagan. He talked about consistency, and that's what he was looking for. And he thought, that was where they were going, that each week they were putting on a kind of a gritty performance, if it's not brilliant, but being in the game, and that just wasn't there at all.
The tough thing now is trying to reverse the possession now. And the six agains, like, I'm a fan now, and I watch the game. I'm still waiting for someone to explain to me what all the six agains are all the time. Momentum in the games. And when you've got blokes like Katoa and so forth that can control games of football and they don't make mistakes, you're right, Wado. They need. It seems to me like they need like a leader, like someone who will stand up and say, "Hey boys, enough's enough. We need to come up out of the line and do something to try and change the momentum of the game." It looked to me like they were on the back foot all the time. Their retreat, the St George Illawarra side I'm talking about, their retreat was very slow, which gives you momentum. Quick play the balls. All of a sudden, we saw it in the Origin game. New South Wales didn't go out the back once because they didn't have to. I think that was the same in that game last night. The Dolphins, mate, they just poured through them. And when you got blokes like Katoa, who's a wonderful young player, he's going to be a sensation and deserves all the raps he's getting. I've got to give a rap to the coach too, Christian Wolf.
Yeah.
Mate, he's the sort of bloke, I've only ever seen him interviewed. I've never met him. He's the sort of bloke I reckon I'd want to play for. Mate, tough, down in the gutter. And that's the way I think his team reflects the way that he is.
Yeah.
Always a tough job taken over from Wayne Bennett, but it took a little while to get going. But, mate, they're playing their own style now, and they've got themselves into the 8 now. And you think about only a couple of weeks ago they flogged the Dogs. So it's not a fluke. So they come out and they did that to the Dragons. So, mate, good on them. And I like the Dolphins. I like what they stand for. They've done well with their recruitment. They've only been in the comp a couple of years, and I reckon they're going good.
They've got some injuries at the moment, the Dragons too, Tone. I think, the last thing they could afford last night was to lose some more players. But obviously they've got guys like Dylan Egan, Ryan Couchman, Jaden Sewer's out at the moment. There's lean in the outside backs as well, like the guys like Corey Allen. They lost Tupoleto during that game, but still that's no excuse for the way they played last night. I mean, that was not a complete opposite of what they've been like this year. They've been in footy games and they've ground out results and they've competed most weeks, but they just weren't at the races last night. Yeah. It was horrific the way they played, to be honest. Well, I was surprised Flano was so calm in the press conference afterwards. I was expecting him to give it to them.
He probably doesn't have an answer right at the moment because, again, a lot of these performances, sometimes you never sense them coming. Like sometimes you can sense maybe the energy isn't right or the preparation hasn't been great. You try and put your finger on what it is. And then you go out there and play the game and you go, I sensed it beforehand. But sometimes with these performances, they can come out of the blue and shock you. And again, they played well against the Knights. They had a victory. They maybe felt like they ticked all the right boxes throughout the week. They got up there to Suncorp Stadium and they put in a performance that we haven't seen of them all year. And he was probably left wondering, what had happened himself. And he's had 24 hours to digest it. If they're doing the video right now, well, he's going to start coming up with some answers, and the sprays might be coming today for the players.
I often wonder the effects of you're recently retired, Wado. The effects of blow-ups have, and how many you got. If he would have been watching that last night, he would have been thinking back to, mate, I blew up in round 3. I can't really blow up now, and I don't know about you, Wado, but when I was playing, it's a long, long time ago. But I never heard anything that the coach said to me at halftime, unless he said it to me face to face. Mate, they come in there and they waffle on. We're going to kick chat. We're going to do all this stuff. Mate, I'm sucking on an orange and wiping myself down and wiping some blood off my melon or whatever. Yeah. I'm not really hearing. Were you the same? I'm not really hearing what they're saying. The big thing for me was the great coaches for me, and Warren Ryan was brilliant, a brilliant orator of the game and set plays and how to catch people out and all that. He was a genius at it. But if he said something to me personally at halftime, I would get it. Otherwise I'll be off with the Pixies thinking I'm going to square up with that bloke or, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's probably, it comes in the art of coaching. Now, some players probably respond to that whole team message. They understand what the coach is trying to get across in that team environment. But then him as a coach for you, he probably understood the times he could let you go and be yourself. But, hey, if I really need to get Blocker on the same page as me and get some information across, I've got to speak to him face to face. And that's what the difference between the really good coaches, the experienced coaches, and the guys still learning their craft. They know that, everybody ticks a different way, and they get that understanding, and they target different players in different ways. And, again, when I was playing, I could listen to the coach. More so I was trying to work out what had happened in the first half, where we were at, where I thought we could make some changes. But then again, I would be, listening to my teammates, what they had to say as well and what their thoughts were and going about, okay, how do we go together as a team to solve the problems or to go on with the game?
I found the best coaches, I was talking about them, coming in and talking for 10 minutes while the halftime's on and they're waffling on about everything. The best coaches, if you're behind 20-6, the best coaches will tell you how you can get out of it. Not do footy jargon and all that, right? This is how, right, you got me, boys? This is how we're going to get out of it. They were the best coaches.
Yeah.
He's got to turn it around quick, Tone, because their draw's horrendous over the next 9 weeks. Like the Sharks twice.
Yeah, they've had a couple of buys already.
Raiders twice.
Well. Yep.
Warriors, Dogs, Cowboys in the next 9 weeks.
Yeah, well, last night for a Dragons fan was a little bit like watching your kids falling off a bike again and again and again. It was no fun at all.
Training wheels back on, you reckon?
Absolutely. All right, the Knights beat Manly 26-22. Didn't always look like that was how it was going to play out. Half-time, they were down 16-0, the Knights, and the fans at Newcastle were unhappy and let them know all about it with a little bit of a booing. Now, that's caused quite a bit of controversy with their coach as well. Here's what Adam O'Brien had to say directly after the game.
Adam, the team was booed off by some parts of the crowd at half time and then roared off at full time. How can you summarise that game and the feelings and the result?
It's disappointing. Yeah, it's really disappointing to people to even, I know the scoreline's not what they want, but to boo the effort that went into that first half from a really young team. The people that booed don't know anything about rugby league. They're probably the ones that cheered at the end too. That disappoints me that they do that.
The people who booed don't know anything about rugby league. Now, did you, Blocker, for example, did you immediately, was there kind of warning lights go off?
Yeah, I was going, ooh, mate, this bloke is looking for a payout. Honestly, that's the first thing I thought. I thought, wow, mate, you can't keep coaching there if that's your comments after a game about the fans who come out in the cold week in and week out. It just goes to show that you should think about I mean, I've blown up plenty of times, but as I've gotten older now, you sort of take your time now before you come out and say like that. It would have been
before speak.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit different if it was away from home. Yeah. But at home, oh geez.
Yeah.
Someone's got to him straight away.
They're the most loyal fans just about in rugby league, the Knights fans. So, I mean, he's obviously realised the error of his ways pretty quickly because he spoke the next day, and we'll hear that.
Well, let's have a listen to what he did say the next day.
Before we get started, I just want to address some comments that I made last night in the press conference. I apologise unreservedly to our members and fans that I offended, and I can understand why they would be offended. I was underprepared for that question. I was unaware that there had been some booing on my way down at halftime, and the first time I'd heard of it was with that question, and I went straight into protection mode for our playing group. They are an educated crowd. They sit through all types of weather and all sorts of scorelines with unwavering loyalty, and I'm disappointed that I let them down with an emotional response.
There you go. That was a full 180 degrees right there.
Yeah, well, he had to take accountability for it.
Yeah.
I know the comments, again, if they came from an emotional place the night before, a lack of being prepared for that type of question, defending his players, I understand all that. But ultimately, the players and the playing group and the coaching staff are one part of the club, but the members and the fans are just as big a part of that club. Like, you don't go out there and play for the Newcastle Knights unless you have members and fans in the seats. And I think he realised he may have slipped up, and he needed to come out and apologise and take accountability, because ultimately he's the leader of that club. If you're the head coach, the buck stops with you. And when you're addressing anything publicly, you're talking to your members and fans. And I know he was defending his players, and he said the effort was okay in the first half of that game. And, I called that game. I can't question their effort, but certainly their footy wasn't great. It was a hard half of footy to watch. Newcastle have been under pressure for a little bit. There's always question marks around how they're playing, Adam O'Brien's future. And they love their footy, the Newcastle fans. They turn up week in, week out, and it just got to the point where they weren't satisfied with a half. They let their emotion show, and it's just part of the game. You've got to deal with it and deal with it in the right way. Now, I don't think he did during the press conference, but it was good that he got on the front foot straight away and addressed it, because it had to be done.
Well, the players certainly dealt with it the right way, because they came out and won.
Yeah.
Do you think that contributed? I mean, they don't want to be hear their fans booing them off, but it certainly kick-started something in there.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think Adam can get emotional at times. We see that in the coach's box, right? You see his emotional reaction to what happens on the field. And sometimes he says things in the heat of the moment when emotions have got the better of him. And obviously he's been under immense pressure this year. Lots of talk about his future at that club. They're not going well. They played really poorly for most of the year, really poorly. And they've looked, insipid in attack really at times, as they did in the first half of that game. So I can sort of understand how he's gone in after they've come back in that second half, and he's probably pumped up. Someone said to him, mate, they boot him off at half time, and he's lost that control in that moment, and good on him for accepting it. I'm really intrigued to see the reaction to him the next home game.
Oh, that's what I'm looking to, yeah.
I'm really intrigued to see whether those fans forgive him for it, because that's going to be really interesting, Tony. Particularly, as I said, they played really poorly. So if they play poorly again at home, the next home game, that's what I want to see.
In his defence, he was talking about the middles. You have a look at that game. They got blasted straight through the middle. I thought the scoreboard flattered them. I did that game too, right? So they're missing some big bobbers.
But Blocker, next year they're losing Leo Thompson.
Yeah,
they haven't bought anyone to replace him. Their middles next year are going to be weaker than this year.
Well, I think the real story out of that game is Manly. Manly, the team they have on paper, the experience that they have, they get to a 16-0 lead at halftime, and Newcastle weren't great. Manly were probably doing it in third or fourth gear. They weren't even going full tilt. They managed to get a lead, and then against Newcastle side, who even started poorly in that second half, they had no energy. They were one out. They were finding it hard going. All of a sudden, a little bit of second phase, Fletcher Sharp scores a try. They get a surge of energy, and Manly, they give up another lead. They get within the game, then they find a lead, could possibly close out the game, and they can't hold on. And where are Manly at? That's all I don't know. They're hard to get a read on. I feel like they should be playing much more consistent footy with the experience they have in their team. And again, that curse of giving up a lead has struck again.
What's Ponga do? Is he off contract? Is he allowed to negotiate?
End of 27.
Oh, he's got. Oh, right.
He can't
I thought he might have been off, whether he could negotiate with other clubs. No. Looking at that performance, you would think a player like that would be going, mate, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was the one that scored the final try, and that was his first try of the season. He had a lot of try assists.
Yeah.
But, how well he's marked in games and all that sort of stuff. But Fletcher Sharp, the 5'8", I think he scored 9 or 10 tries for the season already. He's a good mover. I mean, he's very elusive. He's got great instinct. A couple of times of those tries that he scored in the back end of that game was just staying alive back on the inside after they went to that right-hand side a couple of times. And just staying alive and just that awareness, I think he can really play, and they can build something around him too.
Well, the other one, Dylan Lucas has been playing fantastic. He was good again the other night, but Fletcher Hunt, he made a difference in that second half. Well, the two Fletchers, they got both the mullets rocking, same first name, so they're quite confusing.
You're right about Manly though, Wado. They're so frustrating, Manly. Some weeks they look. I was at the Broncos game a couple of weeks ago. They looked unbelievable. Then they come out the next week and play like that. I mean, they are so. I can't. And it must drive Anthony Seibold insane.
But nearly every side in the comp's doing it.
Yeah, with the experience of DCE, they had Croker back in at 9. He adds a lot to that team.
Jake was back.
Jake was back. Ola Kawatu was there. Yeah. Even like guys like Garrick, they played plenty.
They lost Lehigh Hopewadi early as well.
But they have the luxury of a guy like Kula to go at the back, and Benny Travojevic, who's played a lot of centre. It's difficult to cover, but they can cover it pretty easily. And Newcastle lost Tyson Frizzell early on with the HIA as well, and you'd argue with their pack and the players missing, that was a bigger effect on Newcastle than the Lehigh Hopewadi incident. So. And they got to 16-0.
Yeah,
like the game was there. DC is the Origin and Queensland captain.
So you're saying the booing story was terrific smokescreen for
Manly? Just for Manly. I just can't get a read on him. There was probably, the moment that besides that try, that I think really turned the game. There was a fifth tackle option from Luke Brooks. He came off the side of his boot and it resulted in a 7-tackle set. The very next set, DC goes down the short side. Goes down the short side actually, and he does those long grubbers as well as anyone. But he hits it off the outside of the boot, kicks it out in the full.
Out in the full, that's right.
And then the very next set, they run a last, so they didn't have effective set ends for 3 sets in a row. And Newcastle got a little bit of energy for that, and then just mounted their comeback.
Yeah. Either of you have been booed off halftime?
In Queensland, yes.
Got booed on. Not only off.
Not at Shark Park. The best boo I ever heard in my career, we played Melbourne Storm at Shark Park one night. And it was a game where you probably all remember there was about 31, 32 penalties in the game. And we were at the at the height of our rivalry then with the Melbourne Storm. There was no love lost when we played each other. There was intensity in every match, and late in the game, Cam had a bit of a word to the referee, and the referee didn't like it, and put him in the bin.
Oh, was that his first sin bin?
That
I
was his
remember
first
that.
sin bin, and I've never heard the noise so loud at Shark Park of when Cam Smith got put in the bin that night. It was brilliant stuff.
That is great. Well, you don't often see the team who gets booed off at halftime come back to win. At least Newcastle did get that job done. 26-22, they were winners overnight. The Newcastle fans, we can find out how they feel about it. I think it's Saturday night playing the Roosters in Newcastle this coming Saturday night.